BBC Radio 5 Live.
Come on in, let's hear it.
Right, I don't know what a podcast is.
Not sure that bit will make it. You can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line.
This is just insane to hear.
Give them the robot.
Give them the robot.
Give them what they want.
Give the people what they want.
Don't ever doubt me again. It's not. I don't make this stuff up.
I love you, I'm not leaving.
That's one of the saddest things I've ever heard, Crouchy.
Just going all in on the podcast. Hello and welcome back. It's episode 6 of That Peter Crouch podcast with me, Peter Crouch. We're halfway through the series and we're in a pub today.
A new pub as well. I quite like it. It's quite airy. Chris, what do you think?
I like it, but it hasn't got the fireplace that Mike Ashley threw up into. So I don't know the story of
He
this
might have.
one
I mean,
yet.
it has got a fireplace. No Mike Ashley. Maybe he has.
It's sort of near the other pub, so I'm assuming there's a story. It's quite central, this pub. There must be stories of things that have gone on in this pub, but maybe we're the thing. Maybe this is where
Nights
that
young.
Peter Crouch podcast was recorded.
One of
and then
us
we threw
might
up in a fireplace.
Are we going to get a blue plaque on the outside?
Have you got a blue plaque?
No, I don't think I'm worthy of a blue plaque.
You
yet.
are. Mate, if I was buying a car and I knew it was your old car, I'd spend a bit more money on it.
I know one of my mates actually sold his car to someone independently, found it on Auto Trader as his car, with five grand more expensive.
Of course.
Yeah.
£5,000.
Yeah, it was like £5 more. Yeah, he
Is this
sold-
a footballer?
yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, come on. Don't leave us hanging.
Yeah, no, it was Glenn Johnson. Yeah, he'd had
Yeah,
this car.
of course it's Glenn Johnson.
He'd had this car for a long, long time.
So the Johnson coefficient is £5,000.
You get £5,000 more if it's owned by Glenn Johnson on anything.
It's incredible. He'd sold it to someone, thought that was the end of it, and then saw it on Auto Trader as advertised as his car.
Yeah, there's something in there. I think if we could do a garage sale with some of your stuff, as owned by Peter Crouch, genuinely adds, I think, value. It's certainly added more value to this podcast. Every little helps.
Every little helps. Okay, have we got any more of those messages that people keep sending in?
Yes, we've got loads,
What have we
actually.
got?
Yeah, and thank you so much to everyone that is sending us in messages.
It's all good. It's all good. Apart from the Iniesta stuff, most of it's really, really
Well, whose
positive.
fault is that?
Well, I've got the picture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
He hasn't got the picture. He definitely
I
hasn't.
keep getting loads of stick on the street and stuff, and it's not pleasant. But let me say this: the rest of it is very, very positive, and I'm pleased.
This one is from Paul. Cracking podcast, lads. I once saw... It's always Nobby Solano on this podcast, I've noticed as well. I once saw Nobby Solano and Celestine Babayaro outside a club in Newcastle. I didn't realise it was Babayaro, though, and accidentally asked him to take a picture of me and Nobby. He was not pleased.
I think that's a bit harsh.
Lots of times myself and Abby have been out and they've asked me if they're Strictly fans or something like that. They've asked me to take a picture, and it's not. I've not been. How dare you not have a picture with me?
Do you know who I am?
Why on earth would I be taking a picture? That's fine. You know, they're fans of her, not me.
Yeah, but I think they're asking you to take the picture because actually the angle with which you take it is actually a very flattering angle, isn't it?
Yeah,
If it was from down below, you get big chin on any picture.
Yeah.
If you were Jermaine Defoe, they might not be asking you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Here's one. You remember this story from Nick? Remember Miss Chang, Peter? Miss Chang, your former dentist from Ealing. So Nick has got back in touch. He says, I know you've already spoken about my mum, Miss Chang, but do you remember getting on the mic at the Haven Arms in Ealing after QPR won the playoff final?
Yep.
You were singing Oh Bobby Zamora. Yeah?
Yep. Spot on.
And then this is a little payoff from Nick. My mum did say that your legs couldn't fit on the dentist chair.
Chang Jr. is factually correct
Is he?
in pretty much everything he's tweeted in. Obviously, I did know his mum. She worked on Pittsinger Lane. She was a very good dentist. I was at the QPR playoff final against Derby. Bobby Zamora scored in the last minute. We had a fantastic day. And my friend, we still play golf together, Warren. He owned the Haven Arms, so anyone who goes to the Haven Arms will know Warren. And we went back to his pub after the game in high spirits, jovial mood. And it's a big QPR pub, so we were all in there and we were singing songs about Bobby Zamora.
I'm loving Ealing at the moment. This podcast has been a crack for the tourist board of Ealing, if it
This is
exists.
absolute
this podcast
gold
has
dust,
done
isn't it?
wonders, hasn't it? We've got the Haven Arms. We've got the
Samrat.
Samrat.
Yeah.
Samrat Curry
I've been
House.
told we're not allowed to mention anymore.
Aren't
No, because the Samrat had quite a few mentions on a previous podcast. But however, a bar crawl through Ealing, I think would be wonderful.
Listen, if ever you want to, I can take you around. It's no problem.
Carl has messaged us to say, oh no, I don't like doing the sort of tall jokes with you because I know you're not mad.
But you're going to do one anyway.
Well, it's Carl.
Yeah.
So
it's Carl's fault.
Classic Carl, isn't it?
Carl says, have you ever had a light bulb that was too high to change?
Right, so can I just tell Carl, on behalf of tall people everywhere, we have heard this numerous times, hundreds, possibly thousands of times, about light bulbs. There isn't a light bulb too high to change. We've changed them just like everyone else. Sometimes we need a ladder, sometimes we don't. So piss off, Carl.
There we go, and that's how we're going to get more listeners to listen. Piss off, Carl.
We don't need him. We're flying.
God.
We don't need Carl.
We need Carl.
We need Carl's mates and his family.
No, I don't care. He's talking derogatory to tall people. We don't need him.
Right,
do you,
Carl,
do you
you've been
treat
told-
yourself as a union of tall people?
Yeah,
Who
we
else?
do. I
Who
mean,
else counts?
It's not, like everyone's heard the what's the weather like up there? Is the weather different? Changing light bulbs, it's boring. Get to a certain age, you just leave us alone.
All right, guys. So please, no more tall jokes.
No,
towards the podcast.
listen, I don't mind a tall gag. I can take it, but the light bulb one.
Do you reckon you get more bad tall jokes than Theresa May probably gets about her dancing?
Oh, her
crap
dancing was incredible. I thought she was great.
Well, she was doing your moves, to be fair.
What moves? That's my repertoire. That she had a go.
That's all you can ask, isn't it?
That's all you can ask.
Here's one for us. This is from Richard. Richard says, I saw Peter with a bottle of champagne. Just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Does it sound like you?
Well, I don't like champagne. No.
So you're down. You're basically saying Richard's line already. Okay.
No, I'm not saying that because it could be possible.
It might be a bottle of champagne for someone else. So I saw Peter with a bottle of champagne in Bamboo Bar VIP in Southampton. Have you been, Peter Crouch, to Bamboo Bar VIP in Southampton?
Yeah, I'm sure Bamboo was in Leisure World Southampton, and I possibly could have been in there behind the velvet rope.
He says you were behind the velvet rope. Cuttingly, he says you were on your own.
Yeah.
It's quite a sad picture for me, that, Chris. A man living away from home. He's gone to the local nightclub by himself, which is never good. He's bought a bottle of champagne by himself.
Yeah.
And he's just standing there by himself with this bottle of champagne. No friends.
That didn't happen.
Well, you just said it did.
I don't
you just
like
said
champagne.
everything about
no,
this Bamboo
I didn't say
Bar.
everything about it. I said I've been there. I've definitely been there. Could possibly have been behind the velvet rope at some stage.
Have you been by yourself?
I would never have been on my own. I wouldn't have been on my own, and I wouldn't have been drinking champagne.
I hate champagne. Do you actually like it?
It's horrible.
Yeah, what's that
Horrible
about then?
drink.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I think it's for people that just like to have a couple of sips and go home. It's not for me.
I like champagne.
I do.
I do like champagne. Yeah.
That's not for
Nice
me.
beverage.
Right, we'll have more of those later on, but let's get stuck into this episode. It's all about tactics.
In goes Crouch, and it's there! And Peter Crouch scores for England.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Right, I'm going to start us off on this one. You know when you stop, Peter Crouch, and you ask someone for directions, and they tell you like 4 or 5 elements of directions, you can only ever remember the first thing they say. When they go, yeah, go straight on the traffic lights, that stays in your head. The bit where they go, take your second left and you go past a pub on the right, it's red, you're just nodding at them, aren't you? It just doesn't go in. Is it like that when you sit down with a manager and he gives you your tactics for a match? You remember the bit where he says, right, first 10 minutes, keep it tight. And then he finishes talking, you look at him and think, oh no.
That is a good analogy. I like that. I like the way you've compared it to directions, because you do switch off directions and then you forget, and you're halfway through the directions and don't know what you're doing. A lot of the time when the manager's talking, I'll be thinking of my own specific job.
Right, so what level of detail is there with tactics? So when you get set up for a game and you see the formation, everything like that, how controlled is it?
Yeah, I think it all depends. You watch the other team's good bits and bad bits, so things we can exploit and things we need to watch out for. And I think, say, you play Man City or something, you'll be working on your defensive shape a hell of a lot more than you will your attacking shape.
How do you work on that? So in the week, because I hear that training sessions are like a couple of hours and you have a lovely lunch and you don't have to turn up there till quite late. Like, what are you actually doing?
Like Monday to Friday, it'll be obviously Monday and Tuesday are quite intense, quite hard. You might have a rest day on a Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday are a lot more tactical. Say if we're playing a top team, say we're playing Man City.
Is someone pretending to be company
Yeah,
or
exactly
Aguero,
right.
or are they?
Yeah, that's happened a few times.
They wear a blue shirt.
We'll have like the youth team come over. So say the first 11 will play against the youth team, and they'll be put in specific positions to whoever you're playing against. It gives us a lot of confidence because they're not quite on the.
It's not 17.
Because they're kids. We
17.
bully them and put them to bed, and then we go into the game full of
So
confidence.
do they try and match up the youth players with the players that you'll be up against? So someone more. So let's take company. Do you have to go with a sort of well-hard but 14-year-olds looking?
Yeah, we try obviously to put people in the positions that they would be in, but obviously, no one's going to be like Vincent
Can't
Kompany
take
at
that
14.
seriously.
Is it role play where you have to, let's say he's called Dave, this 14-year-old, where he has to pretend he's called Vincent?
It's not quite. I feel like we're taking the piss out of tactics.
Sorry, no.
You settle back. We've barely started.
Do you know what?
Very important.
When we decided on doing this tactics episode, I'll be honest, I thought there's not all that much in it. But actually, there's loads.
So for 14-year-old Dave, when you've asked him to pretend to be Vincent Kompany, is there a safe word?
Where he can come out of character.
Come out of character.
Yeah, he can always mention his safe word if he needs to get out.
In your Man City example, so it doesn't sound like rocket science. It basically says they're amazing at attacking. Let's just sit a bit deeper.
That's how you'd cope with Man City. Just hope they don't score. They're so good. But there's been a couple of times. Obviously, I remember playing against Man City at the Etihad for Stoke. Man City should iron out Stoke quite comfortably. But we had men behind the ball and we had pace on the break, and it was a simple tactic. And I think sometimes you can get caught up a little bit too much in tactics. And certainly when we were at Liverpool, we'd have a home game and we'd be playing Wolves or possibly Watford at home. With Rafa, obviously, he would be very, very tactical and drill us in lots of different things. And sometimes I'd agree and sometimes I wouldn't. But I felt that in some of those games, I was like, look, we've got Alonso, Gerrard, Mascherano, Torres,
Crouch.
Let's just go and beat them. Like, why are we worried about them? Why? Let's just go and play our game and go and win. And I think sometimes we were set up with two holding midfield players, and I was like, just go out and beat them. And I think sometimes you can get caught up in it. And we talk about formations and tactics. Like, I just feel like sometimes football's gone away from simplicity. The wingers are always on the opposite sides now, and they're always cutting in and shooting. And why can't we have wingers that go past fullbacks and get crosses in? Why can't we have men in the box? And I understand that these days a lot of teams have three in midfield, and you have to get one to fill in and one to sort of block off maybe the deep line midfielder. But if you've got like a rigid sort of formation and you're getting crosses in, you're getting people into the box, you've got more chance of scoring.
But then aren't you then just arguing the point, which is actually get the right players into your club and let them play?
Yeah, exactly right. With Harry, I felt that he would simplify people's games, and he'd simplify it to the point where you had no comeback when you were doing something wrong, because we were like, look, I've just told you to do that when you're doing this. It was so simple but so effective. And I remember we had such a good side at Spurs. He'd say to Wilson Palacios, and Wilson Palacios probably played his best football at Wigan and then at Tottenham. Harry used to say to him, Wilson, go and hustle and harry and win the ball back. And he said, I don't care where you are on the pitch, give it to Modric. He said, you'd literally go out, hunt the ball down, and he said, I don't care if Modric is there, you pass it to him, and then you let him.
That's quite a challenge if he's picking up the ball.
Off his keeper.
Yeah. He's looking up and going, oh, serious, Harry?
Genuinely, yeah, it was amazing.
Give it to Modric.
Give it to Modric. And I was thinking, he's totally simplified his game. And
what was Modric told?
Just go and entertain, go and make things happen. And it was only really sort of now where I feel that Modric is getting the credit that he deserves, because even at Spurs in training at that time, he could see how good he was and what a player he was. And even Gareth Bale was a similar sort of situation, because he was getting stick and he was playing left back. And I always think that Cristiano Ronaldo, if he was playing right back, would be getting exposed. And that's what was happening to Gareth Bale. It was obvious that he was a forward player playing in the wrong position. And once we did get that right, he was a massive, massive player now. Certainly the top sort of 5 players in the world. And he just went on to a different level.
But do you think he only reached that level because he played with you at the start?
Yeah, there was no way he was going to get there without me, was there?
Do you think there's anyone, in all seriousness, player that you've played with, that you can take credit for kind of bringing up in the game?
Yeah, I don't know. I worked with Harry Kane when he was in the youth team coming through. That was nice to see. I think what I will say is that he did come over and he was so hard working. He constantly wanted to improve and he constantly scored goals. So
what I like to think, Chris, is that Harry Kane, when he's through on goal or he's got his back to goal 25 yards out, there's a little thought in his head, a little voice that just goes, what would Crouchy do?
Well, I think that should have been the name of this podcast. What would Crouch do?
at
It would
no
change
point,
everyone's mindset.
at no point did I say I take credit for Harry Kane. I said I trained with
That's
him a
gonna
couple of
stick now,
times.
isn't it?
Gonna stick, isn't
You're going to
it?
be getting tweets from people going, do you know what? Thank you, Crouchy. Was there a point where you were faster than Gareth Bale?
Yeah, I was faster than Gareth when I was in my sort of heyday when I was about 20. He would have been 12. I reckon I'd have beaten him then.
Who scored more overhead kicks?
That's true. Yeah.
To be fair,
I reckon I've got him there.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd like this podcast?
I think he listens to it regularly.
Do you reckon?
Probably not.
You sort of said that in quite a sarcastic way.
No, I don't know. I think he would enjoy it. Yeah, of course he would.
So, challenge for next week. I think we spoke about this before about passing on this podcast. Pass it on to Gareth Bale.
Okay.
Put this out there a
good
little
shout.
bit more.
Have you still got Gareth Bale's number?
I don't believe I do. No.
Who will you go through to get it?
Well, we got the same agent.
that
Joe
makes it
Allen
easier.
plays for Wales.
Crouchy's old school. He'll be on MSN.
Quite a few hours.
Friends reunited.
Friends reunited.
Friends reunited. I'm all yeah.
Do you remember on MSN where you could vibrate?
When was the last time you spoke to Gareth Bale? Will it be a bit awkward, or will you just be able to say, "You're right, Gareth"?
Well, it'd be a bit strange. I haven't spoken to him for a long time, but yeah, I'm sure he'd be fine. He'd be absolutely fine with it. He'd be delighted. I'm sure he'll even come in.
Mate, you might even. You're taking the piss there. I mean, sort of, you float on the line of sincerity and sarcasm quite wonderfully. It's your tactic, isn't it?
There are some quite weird formations we see now. It's got very funky. So I want to take us back to the very first international of all time. It's England against Scotland. It's 1872. This might be my favourite football formation of all time, Chris. Right? England lined up in a 1-1-8.
A 1-1-8.
1-1-8. So they had a defender, a midfielder, and 8 forwards.
What was it?
0-0. It was 0-0.
Was it really?
Apparently what England did, because this was so early in football's development, I don't think there's even any crossbars at this point, the England players just took it in turns dribbling. So you'd have a go at dribbling, see if you could dribble your entire way through the team. And if you failed, then someone else would have a go. So it was like eight forwards all having a dribble.
There's something in that.
I do-
Surely setting up with 8 forward.
I do like seeing different things coming into play. I love Stoke when Tony Pulis was obviously in charge. We had so many things that would unsettle defences and unsettle teams, and obviously the throw-in.
Throw-ins. I mean, that was mad.
It
with
was
Stoke.
amazing. You know, I watched people panic and give away corners instead of throw-ins, and it was just the whole thing where
Really?
yeah, literally, yeah.
They'd rather have a corner.
No, genuinely, I watched them kick it out for a corner instead of a throw. Just that whole panic that we
Delap's
we were
lurking.
causing
Delap,
with
wasn't
it.
it?
Yeah,
Delap.
and I think if you actually looked at it, I don't think we scored many, but it was just sheer panic and confusion that it caused, and we ended up keeping them in their own box. And I remember Aurelio Gomez, believe it or not, we were launching in these missiles. I think it was myself. There was loads of people coming, piling into the box. And I actually remember Gomez taking a knee and throwing the ball out, and a tear in his eye.
A single tear.
Just couldn't handle this aerial bombardment that was
I'm
going
sorry,
on.
you're claiming Gomez cried.
Because of Rory Delap.
He was in a state.
He
of
cried on the
turmoil.
pitch.
He was.
Was there definitely a tear? Come on, we know these stories are like now. Was there definitely a tear? Was there definitely a tear?
No, genuinely, he was very upset. I don't know if
This is
yeah.
ridiculous. I used to play when I was 10 or 11 years old with a guy called Richard,
Yeah.
right? And he had diabetes. And his dad used to force him Mars bars before a game.
the
And
worst
he'd
thing you
get
could do.
really upset about having to eat this Mars bar before a game that he'd burst into tears. I've never heard of a professional footballer bursting into tears
Well, listen.
for sort of can't handle the situation.
It was. I'm sure it was a tear, but he was very upset, physically distressed by the amount of aerial bombardment that was coming in.
Did you feel guilty?
You look at the amount of times I saw defences just, even when they got off the bus, sometimes I'd watch, it was usually Arsenal where they just didn't want to be there. Literally I watched them get off the bus, shoulders hunched, and they knew what they were going to get. And that look of sheer horror on players' eyes when they were getting off the bus, and it was so funny to watch people sort of wilt in front of you.
Aerial bombardment as a tactic. If we're writing a list of different tactics that we see throughout this podcast, aerial bombardment's a good one for me. There's something
right
quite
back.
British about it.
There is. I love it. I really do. I really
It's a bit the Blitz, isn't it?
It is a bit. And the Crazy Gang were famous for it, and it was similar in a lot of ways to that. I mean, the intimidation tactics, Vinnie Jones, John Fashanu, so many sort of hard men in the team. Similar sort of thing.
Can we talk about that very quickly? So was there a player that you were ever scared of?
There's been a couple.
Be honest, like the player that you turn up and you'd be like,
Kevin Muscat. You're going to say Kevin Muscat.
Kevin Muscat scared me. Yeah, he did. But people say, I'm going to break your legs. But he was saying...
Do they? They say that to you?
Well, not so much now, but it did happen a lot. And when he would say it, you genuinely believed him.
Have you seen him, Chris? Kevin Muscat?
Yeah. I remember him from sticker albums, yeah.
My 7-year-old said to me the other day, who was the dirtiest player of all time? I've gone straight to WooTube and I've just put Kevin Muscat in and I've just let him see the horrors.
Did you see it?
Yeah, and he understood.
So what is it, a compilation of bad
There's all sorts. You can get
isn't
one-off Muscat horrors. You can get the best of Kevin Muscat, which is the worst of Kevin Muscat.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I don't think it goes on as much now. Genuinely, that sort of standing on people's toes, the pinching, the little sly elbows and little digs, and
I'm just seeing Dennis Wise in my head when you're saying this.
Yeah, definitely. He used to do it all the time. I mean, I was a ball boy at Chelsea. I watched him firsthand doing that for years.
Ran over my foot once.
He ran out on his car?
Yeah, I was
deliberately.
I was young as well. Yeah, I get a Pinstars presentation evening.
Wise is there, is he?
He was there.
As the guest of honour?
Guest of honour was signing everything for everyone, and then his car went to leave. I think he had like a relative or something probably in Harrow. This presenter, too much detail, but either way, I remember his car going, and we're all round the window, and he was kind of ruthless in how he left, considering I was a child. And
Was there
went
permanent
right
damage?
over my foot? No, weirdly, and you'd think that, wouldn't you? That if a car ran over your foot, it would hurt. It didn't hurt at all. Like in cricket, where they're in the ear the whole time, you must be getting that.
Yeah, definitely. I remember John Pansel was at Fulham a few years back.
Central defender.
And I remember he went through me, so I started giving him a bit of stick. I was saying, you're useless, how are you even on this pitch? And I was like...
Class A sledging.
Yeah, Class A. I was like...
In your face, Pansel.
You're useless. Your mates are laughing at you, basically. You cost this team every week. And then
I've seen a different side of Krause here. Who are you?
You cost this team every week. It's a good one.
It was a good one, yeah. I was pleased with it.
Are there any other words
I was
in
on
there?
fire, actually. I remember saying to and then I had to ask him his name. I don't know your name. I had to look at the back of his shirt. And I was giving him a lot of stick. And then I just saw him switch. And I thought, oh no. And he changed. And then I can't remember who was playing. It might have been Aaron Hughes. I said to him, like, what's the matter with this fella? And he said, he's a nutcase. Like,
Could have told you earlier.
basically, what have you done? And anyway, he said that he was going to end my career. He wants to break my legs and this and that. And he was playing right side centre half. So I conveniently moved to the left side centre half. He didn't care. He was left a massive hole at one side of the pitch, and he was just following me wherever I went. And I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to kill me. And literally, things were coming in. He was trying to throw these elbows in. It's an absolute nutcase. And I pulled a couple of the fun boys, like, what's the matter with this fella? What have I done?
It's like a rabid dog or something.
Right,
Did you tell the ref?
He lost the plot.
You tell the ref like telling the teacher?
Do you have to grass?
I didn't grass on him.
You snitch.
I told my dad afterwards. Right, he was fuming.
What single formation has been the one that's totally blown your mind?
Chelsea. I was watching Chelsea as a kid, and when Glenn Hoddle came in, he's played himself as a sweeper, and we hadn't done the sweeper since Beckenbauer, and I was like, he did it at Swindon,
Yeah.
and then he played himself as a sweeper. He sort of had three central defenders, and then himself at sweeper, and it was like he'd given himself protection literally so he could spray it around. And I watched him, and what a passer of the ball. Possibly the best passer I've ever seen. He would put it on a sixpence, basically into the front man's path, as he was running onto it, and it was like he didn't break stride. It was amazing to watch that sort of transition of something completely new, to see that, and something so groundbreaking.
There's always a fashion, isn't there? The fashions come and go. There was one when I was playing for Rivellino in the Wimbledon District League.
These names, by the way, incredible. Pin Stars and Rivellino.
Do you know what? Talking about trying to track down Andres Iniesta, we were always talking about going to Brazil to track down Roberto Rivellino. Never managed, obviously. That started and finished in the pub after games. But Pat Spencer, who was very much the brains of the team, Jim Spencer was the captain, he was the heartbeat, and his brother Pat was the brains. He came up with a tactic once, and he called it the tortoise. He was convinced the tortoise was going to revolutionise football. And the tortoise was based on the tactics used by the Romans when they were going into battle. So, imagine the Roman soldiers, and there's about, how many are there, 20 of them? The ones at the front have all got their shields.
Yeah. Like a gladiator, you mean,
exactly,
where it's
Yeah. So the tortoise, you would have to basically have the kickoff, and then 9 of the outfield players would form a circle around one player who would then just dribble his way down the pitch. And the tortoise would gradually move down the pitch towards the opposition goal. Yeah. The opposition players couldn't get into it because it would be obstruction.
Right.
And he thought this was basically football is waiting for the tortoise.
But called it the tortoise. I like that.
It's good. It makes a lot of sense.
Could you roll it out at Stoke?
There's a slight obstruction laws.
And I think gentlemanly conduct would be the other spoke in the wheel.
There's a few grey areas there, but I like his thought process.
Mention it to Gary Rowett, see what he thinks.
I'll mention it.
I like the different names for tactics, like the tortoise, because for me, there's a game in, is it a sex position or is it a formation? The tortoise could be
the reverse sausage.
The reverse sausage could be
When has everyone played the reverse
position.
sausage? Is that an actual thing? You just made that up.
It's a pub quiz waiting to happen here.
Right,
Actually, have you ever gone reverse cowgirl? Has Rowett ever asked you to?
Have I ever gone reverse cowgirl? Not with Gary Rowett.
No, not with Rowett.
I tell you what, let's give you. I think we should invent some more formations.
Yeah.
The one I'm going to give you, Chris. Let's call it Stark Ball.
Oh, okay.
What is Stark Ball?
For me, sadly, Crouch probably wouldn't play because I would
charming.
go. No, because we're talking tactically here. It's nothing against you.
No, you've left me out.
Yeah,
we haven't even got a
nothing
team.
against you.
He's left me out.
Not a formation either.
And he's left me out.
It's honestly nothing against you. You probably wouldn't want to play in it. You would be having that conversation. I'm going for 10 defenders.
Oh, your start ball is 10 defenders.
I'm going for 10 defenders on the basis that unless you've got a decent striker,
who you've left out, yeah.
And they got to be really good. You're not guaranteed goals from a striker. However, a defensive player, I believe, has a better football mindset than a striker.
Do they line up in one row?
Almost
line?
in a line, yeah.
It's just very striking look, isn't it?
It looks intimidating. Do you know what I mean?
It makes a lot of sense because I think you're going to keep clean sheets, aren't you? And I think you've always got a chance of scoring set pieces or. I think it does make a lot of sense.
It might work better at some clubs than others. Like if Mourinho tried to roll out Stark Ball at United, is that going to work?
Listen, I've had to think of Stark Ball in the last 20 seconds or so. So it's before I get absolutely slated for this, it's not thought through. But I'm sort of imagining a bit like Space Invaders, you know, the old game, where it slowly moves forward. Almost gladiator style in the sense it's quite slow but it's steady and it's just like a wall.
Could we ask one of our listeners who plays for a Sunday League team to implement Stark Ball, even for the first 10 minutes of a game?
Oh, it'd be incredible.
So what happens? Does this happen much in football, Crouchy? So does it happen where the manager will give a signal? I don't know. It could be fist in the air. Right. That doesn't look quite right. But you know, some kind of a bit like in American football where the hand signals come out.
Yeah, at set pieces. That is the only time that a footballer will use signals or hand signals, I believe. And it's usually this bog standard bounce the ball, one arm up, two arms up. But sometimes you'll come up with a first corner, and when that works, it's a good feeling. You know, you come up with a first corner where everyone will bombard maybe the front post.
I love that.
And you'll leave someone at the back post for a volley. Or you'll do one where everyone goes to the back post and we'll leave someone who comes off the back post. You know, the Teddy Sheringham-esque one where you come down the front and volley one. It is a great feeling when they come off.
Have you ever had a manager shouting instructions at you and you can't hear, but you obviously nod along and give the thumbs up.
Like nightclub talking.
And yeah, like nightclub talking. And the second part to this question is, has a manager ever been shouting at you in another language?
I mean, the different language shouting at me has definitely happened. But I always remember Robert Prosinecki, what a player he was. I played with him at Portsmouth. He played for Real Madrid and Barcelona. And we all believed that he didn't really know much English. But I heard him talking one day to one of the lads, and it was absolutely fluent English, absolutely perfect.
Brilliant.
And he'd just been having us on, and he basically we've been asking him to track back, not a clue, didn't want to defend, and then going forward it was like, where do you want it? Where would you like it? This and that. I'm taking the free kicks, I'm on penalties. He's absolutely spot on with his English. But yeah, tracking back, it was amazing how much he didn't understand.
I like him even more now.
But what a player, honestly. Genuinely, he had that where he used to roll his foot over the ball, and it worked on everyone that I've ever seen him do it to.
Heavy smoker as well, wasn't he, Prosinecki?
Yeah, he used to smoke before half-time. and after
Half-time?
games. Yeah.
Where do you smoke at
1930s?
half-time? In the changing
In the
room?
shower, yeah.
In the shower?
Surely you
go
can't-
into the shower and smoke red Marlboros.
Surely there are rules, non-smoking rules, where he'd now have to leave the stadium, and because you can't smoke on the concourse. Also,
No, or you do what you do in hotels, don't you? You put a sock
Tea
on
towel.
the... Yeah, or something
Yeah.
over the fire alarm. Sorry.
Let's talk about when tactics go wrong. So what situation, Pete, have you been in where the tactics have gone massively arse over tit?
Yeah, one springs to mind. There's a few that spring to mind, but certainly one. I remember Rafa came up with this idea. We actually played Watford away at Vicarage Road. I was playing on the left for some reason, and he played, I think it might have been Dirk Kuyt up front, me on the left and Bellamy on the right. For those of you who are football fans who know me as a player, me playing on the left wing, it's not an option. And the case, I think it was for crossfield diagonal balls into my sort of chest. In a lot of ways, it was a nice idea. But when defensively, when they had the ball, I ended up being sort of a left back in a lot of ways. And I was just getting exposed. And I was having a nightmare, to be quite honest. And I remember Bellamy saying to me all the time, "You're having a nightmare, by the way." And I was like, "Yeah, I am actually, yeah." And it's probably one of the worst games I've played. But I ended up coming away, I scored 2 goals.
What?
And we won. It was bad tactics, but we won the game.
You say it's bad tactics, you won the game, right?
And
So
I
you've got to
scored two,
sometimes
yeah, so I suppose-
take your
Exactly.
personal thing out of it. As a team tactic to win that game, it was right.
Yeah, actually I hadn't really...
You scored 2 goals.
I know, but like I played awfully and I felt it didn't work. But that's where players are so selfish. I will only say the tactics don't work if they don't suit me.
That's the
And
point.
that is...
Bingo.
Right.
Players are selfish.
But that's the thing. Once you've signed for a club, you don't want to suddenly go there and then find that you're being played in a way which you're not happy with. Do you discuss that before you move?
It's spot on. I went to Liverpool and Rafa wanted me to play quite a different role, and I went to Liverpool. I didn't score for, I think it was 18 odd games, and it was so frustrating, but I was doing really well for what Rafa wanted me to do, and that was to play a lot deeper than I'd been used to, really. And of course, I was at a massive, massive club. Who am I to turn around and say, these tactics are wrong? And I wasn't naive, but I was just wanted to do well, and I wanted to keep the manager happy, and I wanted to do as well as possible. But when it got to the stage where I was becoming sort of like a national joke, and people were like taking the piss at more than usual, and I was like, this is too much. And I got to the stage where I was like, right, I need to sort of sacrifice the team ethic and start looking after myself. And I just went back to playing how I used to play.
You ignored what Benitez wanted you
Yeah,
to do.
I did. I ignored what he wanted me to do, and I played up top on my own, and I started scoring goals. And it got to a stage where I was getting so much stick. I mean, it was everywhere. I mean, it was literally, you couldn't get away from it. Every time I opened a newspaper, I had to stop buying newspapers. My mum and dad stopped buying newspapers. I couldn't switch on the telly. I couldn't really go out the door. It got to a stage where it was everywhere, and it was an effect on myself personally and everything, really. So I got to a stage where I was like, look, I need to be selfish. I came to the conclusion that I need to be selfish and I need to go out there and score goals and play how I've always known, really. And I did that, and I started scoring goals, and I started doing well, and I was getting sort of credit from everywhere else. And Rafa was like, well, hold on a minute, and I've asked you to do this and you're doing that. And I was like, well, what can I do? And then I started doing very well, but then I started getting dropped.
But you were doing well for yourself in the eyes of the manager rather than the team.
I wouldn't say Rafa was really displeased with me, but there were times where he said, look, I've told you to do this and you're not doing it. And I was like, okay. But then I tried to explain myself. He would say, okay then, and then I might not play. I wanted to do what the manager says. Of course I did, but I'm judged on goals, and certainly as a striker I've moved and I'm not scoring any.
Is that a formation thing then? So with the way we were always set up at Pinstars was 4-4-2.
Amateur football is always, despite all the funky formations, Chris, I have never played, whether for Rivellino in the Wimbledon District League or for Pierce Cougars in the Bishop Stortford District League.
Yes, Cougars!
You love the names.
What is going
Can
on?
we encourage a bit more of this, please? If you play for your pub
absolutely,
team,
Give us your name.
your local team, please send in your names and we'll put a few of them to Crouch because he seems to love these.
I do love them.
Also, I'm sure these local teams would love to hear Crouchy just talking about that, just giving them a shout out.
Exactly. So I have never played, in all the years I've played amateur football, I've never played anything else but 4-4-2. It's like amateur football is completely untouched
When
by
does
the
it
funky
change?
ones.
When does it change? When's the point at which you're becoming way more tactical?
Yeah.
God, it's 4-4-2 all day for me. Gary Neville and David Beckham down the right, if that's all right. And then I'll have Gareth Bale and believe it or not, I'll have someone like Graham Lasso on the left. We've got two fullbacks there, and we've got two wingers that want to cross it.
Also, it's just fun watching Gary Neville bomb past David Beckham on one down the side, hoping that the ball will get put that way.
Invariably, Beckham will completely ignore Neville and deliver it. But that run, 9 times out of 10 he makes it. It will take the fullback away to give him that space to do it.
What happens when you have been training with someone for so long, right, and they know all about the tactics that work with you and the tactics that work against you, and then they go and play for another team?
Great question.
Surely they then inform all their teammates about your strengths and weaknesses, which makes it harder for you to work out how you should be playing against them.
That's exactly what happens, yeah. I think certainly if you've got, say, friends in the dressing room, and sometimes the manager won't give you the team until the day before. Certainly if he knows you've got mates in the other dressing room, because he won't want you to get on the text or tell them, so he'll tell you in the dressing room before the game.
Well, so he won't tell you in case you tell friends that work for others. But surely that wouldn't happen, would it? Because
but you'd be surprised because so say if you weren't playing, for instance, say you're on the bench, you're fuming, you'd be like, yeah, this. Players will be angry and bitter. I have seen it.
So the night before, if I was being really crafty, what I would do is say, do you want to play a game of FIFA? Right? And I'll play as my team, you play as your team. And it's interesting to see how they set up, isn't it?
Clever.
Tactical.
Very clever.
All right, guys, if we're... let's really drill down this tactics thing. So let's say we're taking on Barca. Crouchy's manager, obviously, because he's got the badges and that. Us two are your assistants.
Right.
What team are we managing right now? What team would you like to manage?
Stoke.
Diplomatic.
Yeah.
I like that. So we're managing Stoke. We're set up against Barcelona. How are we tactically going to set up against them, do you reckon?
I always felt that Stoke City, under Tony Pulis, would give Barcelona a game. That team that we had, strong, physical players, it would be unsettling for them. I think 11 men behind the ball at every opportunity, there'd be absolutely no gaps for them to play. And then when we do get set pieces, we take our time over them. Everyone's going forward.
God, I feel like I'm in the room. You in, Tom?
We're
Big
making
time.
it as difficult as possible. And I look at some teams in La Liga and they're playing expansive football and they're getting, there's holes everywhere. And I'm thinking, if you just make it as difficult as possible for them, you stop them from playing. Yeah, be nasty at times, but how else are you going to beat them?
Do you man mark Messi?
I wouldn't necessarily man mark him, but what I would do is perhaps give him a kick or two.
Big time. This is exactly
when you're close to him. And I think, why, if you're going to let the best player in the world dictate the game, you're going to lose.
They always say, Chris, if you're writing a film script, you put your characters in a difficult dilemma. That's how the true character of someone comes out. So I've always fancied myself as someone who likes attractive football. You've put me in this situation where we're assistant managers to Crouchy and we're playing Barcelona. I fear that my true footballing character has been revealed because all I'm thinking is kick him. Kick him up in the air, stand on Messi's toes, push him over, pull his shirt. I'm not happy that that's the style of football that I've chosen But if we're going up against Barcelona, I'm in their face. I'm doing to Messi what John Pansel did to you, Peter Crouch.
Well, what formation are we playing, Tom?
I'm just playing
should we
in
do?
your face gung-ho. It's just like dogs of war.
You almost don't care about the Well, what formation will you set us up at, Crouchy?
I think
we'll smile and nod like any good assistant manager.
I think you've got to play one up. I'd play 4-5-1, and I'd have that the midfielder to be the sort of link to the striker. I'd have the two wingers being the possible outballs, but the rest of the time everyone's behind the ball. And listen, if we've got a little bit of pace on the flanks and we can get down and
stick in the corner.
We're talking Tony Pulis.
Try and hurt them. Yeah, but listen, we're playing Barcelona. I think Lionel Messi is the best player who's ever walked this planet. So, it's going to be difficult. These are top players, and I think if you are playing a championship side against a top side like that, then you'd have to do that.
I want to finish that game. We get an amazing 1-0 victory. All you hear from Barcelona afterwards is whinge. Basically, they didn't play football properly. Oh, they kicked Messi up in the air. You just shrug your shoulders.
Well, hang on. We've got to look at different situations here. So let's say we go a goal behind. How do we switch things around against
set
Barcelona?
pieces? I'm just looking at set pieces for our goals.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, we're talking against one of the best teams in world football. The best teams the world's ever seen. But if you go a goal down against a team who's less capable, then and of course you'd be throwing men forward. But if you do that against them, it's always they're gonna end up with 2, 3, 4. And
So in the league, what point in your experience do you think a manager needs to change a game? If you're 2-0 down, or do you think at 1-0 you need to go violently the other way in situations as a rule of thumb?
No, in my experience of having played for as long as I've played, the panic comes much later. I think if you've got a belief that you're doing the correct thing, and that was the correct thing at the start of the game, if you go a goal down within the first 10 minutes, I don't think that changes. And if you stick to that belief, constantly believe that you're going to get chances and goals the way you're playing, then stick to it. It is hard because you can hear fans questioning it and maybe booing at some of the decisions. But I think if you believe that that's your way of playing, then you have to stick to that belief and hope that things turn around. And of course, when 70, 80 minutes, then you have to sort of abandon that and throw men forward.
So, Chris, we're on the bench for Crouchy. What sort of assistant manager are you? Are you Phil Neal in The Impossible Job, the Graham Taylor documentary? Are you just repeating everything that Peter Crouch says?
No, I'm Bradley Walsh in Mike Bassett's England manager. That's what I am.
Yeah,
A similar role.
I repeat whatever Crouchy says and just earn my money. And then I'll move to whatever club.
You'd be surprised, actually.
I've got a thing, me and Dougsy, we were my best mate Dougsy, and he'll be listening to this right now. He loves this podcast, which I'm very proud about because he genuinely doesn't care about much I do. And we used to say in the pub, right, what is stopping a professional football team at some point just like the manager makes a signal and then they all get down on all fours and pretend to be dogs or something like that. And it really throws the other team so that at that point you can hit them with the confusion. 11 people doing something weird all at once.
Big time freak.
Throws you.
Yeah, I feel like there's a place for that. I always remember, someone saying to me, if someone comes up to you and like, I don't know, with a knife or wants to attack you, if you just pretend to be completely mental, they won't go near you. If you just shout in their face and say some Latin to them.
But this is what I mean. If you stood by,
like your Harry Potter.
if you went onto the pitch and went up to someone, to whatever defender you start speaking Latin to them, or like,
Why didn't you try
to
to John Pansel?
I should have done that. Yeah. But he was doing it to me. That was the problem.
Oh, boys, we're at the end of the podcast.
I've enjoyed that one massively.
You got any more messages, Crouchy?
Yeah, funny enough, I have. Tommy Silva, here he is.
What sort of name is Tommy Silva?
Yeah, it's a great name, isn't it?
Great name.
Tommy
Yes,
Silva.
yeah.
Describes himself as an Osaka-based football obsessive. Loving the podcast. Chris, if you need a hand getting the Iniesta photo, I will be happy to assist.
Get in there, Tommy Silva.
Iniesta's in Japan. Osaka is in Japan. He's clearly talking reason here. He could maybe help us will help me, more to the point, get that picture of Iniesta. Do you remember what we agreed in a couple of podcasts ago? Was that if I can get a picture with Iniesta before you produce your proof that you've got a picture with Iniesta, you'll buy me a car, a top-of-the-range car.
So I don't remember ever agreeing to that at any point.
You did, though.
But I have the photo, so I know I'm comfortable. What I will say...
He's been saying this for
Where
a
is
while,
this
though.
photo?
What I will say, I have the photo. You have to believe me. But what I will say is, I think we're having 3 weeks after this podcast. 3 weeks. If you manage to get a photo of Iniesta, I will...
Buy me a car.
No. I don't know what I'll do.
Will you rent him a car
we'll
for a
make
week?
something up. But
Will you rent him a flash car?
Can I
for
have
a
your
week?
car?
That's brilliant.
Let me borrow... Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
come
settle.
on.
Because I know... Cause the thing is, I could say, you buy me a car and you get me some really crap car. Right?
A Lego car.
What I'll say is, I get your car for a week.
But not just a car, because you've got more than
Yeah,
one car.
I'll get your
He
car.
gets his pick of your
car
cars.
for a week. I do what I
Okay.
want.
Well, can you come round and discuss that with Abby?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I can't
Absolutely.
just give her a car away, but you can come round and maybe talk terms with her.
Yeah, fine.
And then you can have.
Actually, do you know what? It's funny you say that. She started following me on Twitter the other day.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll DM her and say that
Perfect.
you've set the deal up.
Perfect. Well, you do that. And but you won't get one in 3 weeks. Iniesta's a hard man to track down these days. He's a world class footballer. He doesn't ask many people for pictures. Only top players.
We'll see let's see how this plays out. So we're having a little break.
Yeah. Well, what do I get out of this anyway? What do I get?
Your
when I-
reputation. You've staked your reputation on this photo.
Yeah, but
This-
why does he get a
All
car
right.
and I get reputation?
If you
Do you have a car, Chris? Do you want to do a
yeah,
car?
I've got
do you
a
wanna-
car. I could do with a better
Why don't you do a
Right,
car swap? He has to
I
drive.
want-
What car have you got?
How about I get your car?
Yeah, you have to
so
swap.
you are
Fine by
struggling
me.
for a week. How long?
Mate,
for
you're
a
going to be
week?
struggling. It's not
Yeah, well, I'm not going to drive it. I'm just going to take it off
Peugeot
you.
308. HDI Sport, though, so fine.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy with that. And I will drive it.
Mate, you'll love it. I'll tell you what, I'd like one of these future podcasts as well to be done in Ealing at the Curry House that we've
big
been
time.
talking about.
Yeah, that's
I
ideal.
think there's a lot of things that we can build up. I think a gap is good. Distance makes the heart grow fonder
Well,
and stuff
also,
like that.
while we've been doing this podcast, I've personally put a lot of things on hold. I've got to go back and I've got to do all those boring tasks that you know, paying bills or taking the bins out, all those sort of things.
Yeah, right.
So we can come back to this podcast, we'll be refreshed, we can hit it unencumbered by any other worries. Sound good?
Sounds really good to me. And listen, lads, I've enjoyed it. It's half time.
You're
it's
not
not
leaving,
full time.
are you? This isn't one of these...
Yeah, you can't say it to our faces.
It's not you, it's me sort of thing.
No, I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it, and I do believe it's there's more in this. And you know, we've had a lot of great feedback. Not from some people. Who was that fella again?
Oh,
What was
Carl,
his name?
you hate
Carl?
him.
I don't like Carl. But other than Carl, we've had some. It's all been good, really. Yeah. So I've enjoyed it, and long may it continue.
Johnny wants to know about club mascots. And he says, for about 20 years, I've always fancied being Fred the Red and maybe one of the scary Rams at Derby County. And he wants me to ask you, Crouchy, what's your favourite mascot?
I was always quite fond of the Eagle at Palace. Quite liked him. But recently I saw the Boiler at West Brom.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been a huge hoo-ha about this, but which I must have missed. But I didn't know anything about this Boiler. And we pulled up at West Brom, and the lads are like, "There's the Boiler," and I was like, "What?" And I could only see what I described as an actual boiler. I thought it was someone in a boiler suit or
I've heard about this. This is the new deal or
It's
something.
a big
that got
square
done with
boiler.
the
It's a boiler
an
with
actual
arms,
boiler.
basically.
It's an actual boiler. I looked out and he's in a big square suit. And he was an actual boiler. And we were talking about it before. It's actual West Brom fans are fuming about it. I was like, it's amazing. So funny. Don't know if I'd like to be the boiler, but I do think he's one of my favourite mascots.
Surely
now.
the shrimp. I can't remember who has the shrimp.
It'll be Southend. won't it?
Southend, isn't it? Yeah.
What I
Shrimp's
like with
good.
mascots is when, because mascots are jovial, mascots have always got smiley faces, is when there is a minute's silence
Oh, it's
before a
the
game.
best, mate.
And
Have you seen the website?
Is there a website?
Have you seen the website?
I've seen one with Harry.
Mascots. It's like mascots doing moment silence.
I've seen Harry.
Just,
Well, they really solemn.
yeah, I'm going to show you.
There's a beauty of Harry the Hammer
gonna
at
show
West
you.
Ham, who is obviously an anthropomorphic hammer.
Yeah.
And there's a minute silence and he's trying to look downbeat, but he's a big hammer.
All right, guys. Here we go. It's the best website ever. I know it's the BBC, so we're going to have to promote somewhere else. It's called whoateallthepies.tv, and it's when football mascots observe the minute silence.
Oh, he's
And
got his head down, bowed.
You have
The
to
best.
Because obviously
Here
all
we
the
go.
players can look solemn, but you can't look solemn when you're...
What is he, a chicken?
there's the hammer.
Look at Harry the Hammer, look.
Arms crossed there.
What do you do if you're a giant hammer
There's a
trying to
great
look
one
sad?
there. What team's that, Crouchy? That's a giant...
Where are we there? Is that
Fish.
Rotherham?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that'd be Fleetwood.
But look at
It's
that.
the COD Army.
All of them observing a minute silence there. There's now...
They've all got happy, smiling beaks.
How does a boiler look sad?
Look at that. It's a seagull.
Look how
Brighton
happy he
Seagull.
is. Look, everyone else has got like no smile and he's
Arms crossed
can't
behind
stop
the back
smiling.
there. Nah, it's
So when
good.
we have our
That's
party
really
at your
good,
house
isn't it?
and we do our Joshua-style walk-ons,
Yeah.
right, well, I think we need to borrow some mascot outfits as well.
Well, can I give a shout out to Harry the Hornet, who's done a very great job of winding up Palace strikers to the point where Roy Hodgson in the last press conference went really mad about it. Has a mascot ever wound you up?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
No way, you nibbled at a mascot.
I have got a mascot. I'm trying to think who did it now.
What was he doing? Robot?
Would you ever
Someone was
punch
doing
a mascot?
No, he went for the high five. He went for the high five and then like done me with the moving it away one. I'm like, he's a mascot, you know. I went for the high five and he went and done the old
Finger on the nose.
trick on me.
You went for the wing or whatever it was. And,
Yeah.
they did you.
He did me with the move of the wing.
Right, to help us finish on a happy note, Becky says, I don't watch football. I don't know half the players or the managers they're talking about. I assume this is the podcast. But I'm absolutely addicted. Every episode has me laughing so hard that I can't breathe. That's gone wrong.
That'd be an exaggeration.
That's gone wrong at the end.
I'd like to think it's an exaggeration.
Becky, breathe.
Anyway.
You know, it's good that she's enjoying it.
Yeah, however you've ended up listening to this podcast, we massively appreciate it. Short break, and then we go back at it again. We go again.
We go again, yeah?
Back stronger. What the hell was that?
That's going to be your last words on this.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Thank you for downloading That Peter Crouch podcast. Hit the subscribe button and the next episode will come straight to your phone as soon as it's ready. Oh, and whilst I'm here, please remember to leave a nice review, mainly so that we can show it to Peter Crouch's agent, and we're going to need him to sign a new contract, so every little helps.
BBC Radio 5 Live. 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 Live.